Contemporary World Politics, Class 12th, Chapter 1, The Cold War Era. Hello, students. Today we are going to discuss about the first chapter of 12th class political science, Contemporary World Politics. The first chapter of this book is the Cold War Era. I think you have studied in your previous classes about the Cold War. Still, I will make you it clear the definition of Cold War. Cold War is a situation or atmosphere between the two nations. When the atmosphere between the two nations is so tensed that a war can break out between the two nations, that is known as Cold War. In fact, there is no real or traditional war. It is a verbal war between the two nations. They charge against each other, but it is no war, no weapon is used, only verbal war. That is known as Cold War. Like during the middle of 20th century, the condition or relations between two nations like US and USSR were so tensed that a war could start anytime between the two nations. But in fact, there was no war between the two nations. That is why it was known as Cold War. In same way, can you guess any two other nations which were at the threshold of the Cold War? And what will you call the relations between India and Pakistan? So I hope now you have understood the meaning of the Cold War. So we will try to understand this chapter through some slides. Right? Now let's begin. The relations between the USA and the USSR were not so good. In fact, after the Second World War, the both countries had adopted new type of economies. While the USA had adopted the capitalist economy and the USSR had adopted the communist economy. Now USA wanted to spoil the communist economy. In fact, USA had fear that if the communist economy persists in the world, it will force the Americans to adopt communist economy. So it was a big danger for the USA. The conflict of two economies increased tension between the both countries. And that was the main reason of the US. At that time, the president of USSR was Nikita Khrushchev, while the president of the US was John F. Kennedy. After that, the main reason of the conflict between the two nations became Cuba. Cuba is a small island country in the Central America near Gulf of Mexico. The increasing tension between the two nations forced USSR to change her plan. America was planning to occupy Cuba because in Cuba there was communist rule. In fear of it, USSR placed missile in Cuba because the USSR had fear America may attack Cuba and occupy it. And this action of USSR was not liked by US and therefore she raised objection over it. It also increased the tension between the two nations and it seemed the world would have to face another world war. Since the end of Second World War, the both countries were rivalries of each other. The main difference was the economy of the two nations. As we have earlier discussed, that USSR had adopted communist economy and USSR had become a socialist country where each and everything was in the control of USSR. Not only agriculture but industries were also under the control of the USSR government. While in US had adopted the capitalist economy as well as there was established liberal democracy. While at that time USSR had a like dictator government because people did not have much rights in the USSR, while USA had liberal democracy, so people had number of rights that inspired many other nations in the world to give rights to her citizens. In the you know well, the Second World War was fought between 1939 to 1945. In the middle of 1945, the USA decided to drop atom bomb over Japan. And in August, 6th August and 9th of August of 1945, USA dropped atom bomb over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the two cities of Japan. The USA gave arguments that it helped in ending the World War immediately. But many people think, many scholars think, that the main aim of the dropping atom bomb over Japan was to increase its effects in the world politics by America. On the other hand, USSR and other sporting countries were against the USA and they charged USA that though the world ended, but a number of innocent people of Japan were killed due to dropping of the atom bomb in the Japan. So, in this way, the world divided into two power blocks. On one side, there was US, and on another side, there was USSR. And this conflict increased the tensed atmosphere and it gave birth to the Cold War. As in the beginning of this chapter, I discussed the definition of Cold War. That means the tense atmosphere or the tension between the two nations or two groups or two blocks so tensed that a war may break out anytime. But in fact, there is no war. It is a verbal war, but not the traditional or hot war. So it is the main tension of the world that the world war increased the danger of end of the world. Now you see well that the deputing of missiles and nuclear weapons in Cuba, that became another cause of the increasing tension between the two power blocks. So I think now you have understood about it. Now it is exercise for you and you have to solve these questions. Next time we will begin with a new topic. Thank you.